Hello and welcome to CNBC-TV18. Mauritius is the largest source of foreign investments into India, and our ties can be traced back to the 19th century when thousands of Indians settled in the island nation to work in plantations. Mauritius can be really described as India's real all-weather friend, as it stood by India in some of its most challenging times. And to talk about India-Mauritius relations, we are now being joined by Mauritius Prime Minister Mr. Anerood Jugnauth. Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us. CNBC-TV18 में आने के लिए आपका बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद.
Pleasure, thank you.
Sir, you have attended the India-Africa Summit and you have had a very hectic schedule here. Can you give us your assessment of the top takeaways for you as an African leader from the India-Africa Summit?
Well, first of all, I must congratulate your Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, for the excellent organization. And I am of the opinion that this conference has been very, very successful. Well, insofar as Africa and India is concerned, particularly Mauritius, as you just said, our relations go back to over a century. And it's the same for Africa. You know, there are many Indians settled all over the places in Africa. Mauritius, the majority of the population are people of Indian descent, people who were taken there to work in sugarcane plantation. And very often, and most particularly, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, late Indira Gandhi, used to say, Mauritius ek chota Bharat hai, over the seas, you see, and a little in India overseas. So this can give you an idea of our culture, our relationship, our tradition. Well, it's so much like those of Indians over here, that when you come to Mauritius, you feel at home. You don't feel that you are in a foreign land. Now, insofar as this conference is concerned, you see, this will no doubt strengthen and consolidate further this relationship which already exists. And trade, business-wise, I'm sure it's going to give a boost. And with the amount of $10 billion that have been made available, and we all know that Africa is a land of the future. Africa is a very rich continent. They have all resources, and they have woken up now. So I'm sure, being given the relationship with Mauritius, and Mauritius has very good relationship with Africa. We belong to so many organizations common to both Africa and Mauritius, and I am sure Mauritius is going to be a sort of gateway for investments going towards Africa from India. I have no doubt that this conference will have very, very positive results.
Right. In fact, my next question is regarding Mauritius itself. You know, India wants to have a greater engagement with Africa, and Mauritius is, you know, strategically placed in the Indian Ocean. How can Mauritius, you know, project itself as a gateway to Africa as far as India is concerned? And you had mentioned that. What is the strategy? How can Mauritius position itself as a gateway to Africa? Well,
we have all the facilities. We are a democratic country. There is peace and stability. There is rule of law in Mauritius, and so many things that are common to both Mauritius and India. Now we are creating facilities insofar as connectivity is concerned, so that there is more airline using the Asia and the continent of Africa going through Mauritius. We are trying to create all the facilities that are necessary in order to attract investors and use Mauritius as a gateway to Africa.
Sir, you are a top leader from the African continent, and we would want your assessment regarding one point, and that is, do you see any comparative advantage that India has vis-a-vis other countries when it comes to engaging economically with Africa?
Well, I think India is in a better situation than many other countries. For example, let's take countries like the former communist countries. Let's take, for example, China. The relationship between these countries and Africa were very, very different. And India has so many things in common, and India's relationship was more or less natural with Africa. And being given that there are so many Indians, business people, many Indians who have settled in many parts of Africa, in many African countries, I'm sure all this is going to facilitate further the new move that is taking place insofar as industrialization of African countries are concerned. I think India is called upon naturally to play a very, very important part.
Right.
And this is inevitable, so far I'm concerned.
Right.
It's going to be natural.
Right. You met Prime Minister Modi during your stay yesterday. What are the top issues that we discussed with Prime Minister Modi? Well,
we discussed about trade, we discussed about business, we discussed about the double taxation agreement. We discussed also about this change that is being brought to PIO, and quite a number of other issues common to our both countries, and especially that may affect our country, Mauritius. For example, there is that visa problem. Well, we have made concession that all Indians coming to Mauritius do not need a visa.
Right.
So what I prayed for from your Prime Minister is that there should be reciprocity, that we also Mauritians, we don't need a visa to come to our motherland.
Sir, you know, Mauritius has stood by India during some of its most difficult times, and actually it's actually a real all-weather friend that we have always had. Their historical ties, their cultural ties. According to you, what is your assessment of the India-Mauritius bilateral relations?
Well, our relation with India has been exceptional. I always say it's not only a relationship between two friendly countries or two countries that are doing business, it's a blood relationship. Because the majority of our people are of Indian descent. And there are so many things in common among us. Therefore, our relationship has been, so to say, naturally built. And it has always been very excellent. India has helped us a lot since we achieved independence, and we stand by India all along in all its difficulties. For example, say right now, we stand by India, and we have been raising this matter. I was at the United Nations General Assembly recently, and I very strongly made the point that India should be represented at the United Nations in the Security Council. It should have a place. It's quite normal, it's quite natural. And we even asked that Africa also must have its voice there.
On that note, we will take a short break. Stay tuned.